And we're live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining again. This is the second edition of Now Go Start. This is all about the validation process. So appreciate everyone attending. Just to continue down the path of ensuring everybody knows who we are and what we do and why we think we have some answers for you as you consider starting a company. We'll go through a little bit of background. Joining me today is one of our partners and longtime friend and partner of myself and the team, Alex Patel, validation expert, runs our accelerators. He's just a great guy with a lot of great knowledge. And so looking forward to him sharing his insights as we dive into this. We'll go a little bit into the team, but I wanted to share with you all a little bit about the Venture Studio. But before I do that, numbers came out again today in terms of unemployment, still super high. We're seeing some numbers down, but when you have 30 plus million people unemployed, I went through this in 2008 when I started one of my companies called Mobile Weight. Had a difficult time finding a job. It was the right time. I had just come out of another startup, and it was an inkling of an idea that I really wanted to take forward. I was very, very passionate about, and we bootstrapped it. My partner and I committed each a little bit of money, found some people to build the technology for a little bit of equity. Put everything on the line, didn't pay myself for 2 years during that really difficult time. Either did my business partners. Any money that we got, we put right back into the business and grew it. So I just want to share that with you because I know what you're going through as you consider maybe going off on your own, whether you're furloughed, laid off, or in between, thinking about what you could do, unhappy in your job, whatever it might be. This was the whole premise behind Now Go Start, is to help other people. And just share our knowledge of what we've been through. So hopefully some of these anecdotal insights that Alex and I will share with you today is somewhat helpful. But first and foremost, we're here to help. We hope the insights are meaningful for you. And if you're really passionate about your idea, and hopefully these tools give you some more confidence, you'll be well on your way. Again, no better time than now to start your own company. People aren't going to be hiring right quickly. There's a lot of indicators. So take advantage of this time and build your company. As it relates to the Horizon 2 Labs, again, some of you have already heard this. Some of you are new to it. We basically build companies alongside entrepreneurs. We do it ourselves. We work with corporations. We have a methodology. We're sharing that methodology with you. And we're excited to kind of dive into some of the nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff that we don't normally get to share in a public setting. We normally work with our entrepreneurs and our corporations around this. So I hope that you get a lot of insights out of this. Again, a little bit about the team, all serial entrepreneurs. We're angel investors. We've run tech accelerators for many years, had some crazy big companies, and we've had some small companies, venture backed, PE backed, private equity, angel backed. A lot of these are technology-based companies, but we've also spent a lot of time doing consulting. We appreciate everybody giving the responses that they did. In terms of your backgrounds, it's going to help us customize this. It's great to see all the varieties of backgrounds and what you're trying to accomplish. A lot of you are doing it because you're passionate. You like to consult. You like to make people happy. You like to build teams. And you got to figure out a way to make that into a business that's profitable and scalable. And we've had a lot of experience around those types of things and taking our domain expertise and applying those to new businesses that can scale. So between myself, Kevin, Todd, Zach, Alex, Tim, who's on the call, and the whole team at Horizon 2 Labs, we appreciate you being on, and we're looking forward to sharing a bit of our insights. A little bit about our methodology at the highest level from the Venture Studio. We look for a lot of ideas. We source those from corporations, founders. We internally go through sprint weeks and an ideation process. That team is made up of hackers, hustlers, and hipsters. You can kind of see that over to the right-hand side. Hackers being developers, hustlers being people really thinking about the design of the business, and the hipsters being more of the design of the experience. And all of those people are integral into the way that we create companies. And what we do is leverage all of those skill sets and know-how and diverse backgrounds to understand and research and validate what the problem is, before we build the product. When we get in the product, we go into build mode. We resource a network in order to build up the team and scale the idea to a point where we feel comfortable spinning it out as a new startup. And it's all about execution and delivering of time and energy. So, I wanted to share kind of the high level funnel, lots and lots of ideas, do a lot of research. We weed things out. Some things get validated, some things don't. That's where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, and then dive directly into how we actually build product. And so next week, we'll get into more detail. This is a behind the scenes picture of our methodology. It's a 4-phase methodology. Before we build anything, we want to define and validate, and I'll go through these steps with you. Then we go into this prototype design. What is this thing going to look like, act like? How do we get it in front of users and test it before we actually build it? What does it mean in terms of the functionality and the behind the scenes technology we use to build it? And the pitch deck to get people invested in what we're doing, whether that's true investors in terms of money or partners or employees or other co-founders that we're trying to recruit. And then ultimately we're in an MVP, which is kind of the grayed out area, and then into a joint venture and a scale model where we're raising capital behind this thing that's outside of our own confines. So a little bit more on our phase 1 research, which I just went through, which is the most in depth, but it's quick. This is about a 2-week process. We really look at direct competitors. So we'll share some of that with you today. Whether that's incumbents or entrants, new players, highly funded players, existing incumbents relative to big companies that are doing exactly what you're thinking about, but you think you can do better. And that can be a technology company or consulting company. A lot of you are thinking about consulting. You're competing against the Accentures of the world or E&Ys or, other major players, and you might be one person. How do you compete? You've got to look at how they price themselves, build, and differentiate yourself in some form or fashion. We also look at industry trends. We look at market maps, with essentially building up of all the core components. We did this with Root Insurance when I was involved early on with Drive Capital, looking at that market map. What is the composite of an insurance company? All the way from the underwriting to the claims process to the reinsurance industry, and who are all those players and what are they doing and how they differentiate. And then we also look at the forecast. What is the future going to bring in terms of this industry? How are people going to engage with that product or service in the future? We're going through that right now with this pandemic, where work from home, commercial real estate, people being in the same room, collaboration tools are the future of how people will work. And you have to forecast that in terms of the industry insights. Some of these things may not exist today given changes in the environment. Next is product design. We look at user experience. We look at trends. We use a lot of different tools that you can do Google research on in terms of jobs to be done or various other tools. We're going to dive a lot into this next week in terms of how you might build out a business model canvas and how these tools may apply. And then lastly, we'll look at the analogs of what the adjacent markets is. That's kind of one of our key ways of describing ourselves. We're constantly looking at the adjacent markets and adjacent business models. We're actually looking at a couple of different solutions today in mortgage and how that affects gigsters, much like yourselves. When you're 1099 and not a W-2, a lot of lenders don't look at you the same and charge you a premium or take a lot longer time to collect your documents. So we kind of look at various business models, and there might be adjacent categories that aren't even within that space, but have the same effect that we can learn from. All encompassing, that's our market and competitive research, and we spend a lot of time. That may seem overwhelming, but we literally do this in 2 to 3 weeks. This is kind of pile on, dive in, take existing content, learn, and evolve your idea. And this is a constant process. So not to overwhelm you, but want to be somewhat thorough in the way that our process works. And we want you to adopt what makes sense for you in the way that you're thinking about your business. So in our first phase, again, this is 2 to 3 weeks. I'm only going to hit on a couple of these things, but in the discovery phase, you've probably been collecting newspaper articles, and I'm an old school guy, so clipping articles or copy and pasting URLs or doing whatever you might want to do in terms of what that idea. And some of this has been stewing for some of you for years. Others, it's a brand new idea, or you don't have your idea just yet. But start, whether you use Evernote or other tools, or put something inside of Notes or Google Doc, capture as much information as you can in order to be successful in what you're doing. And then on the capture side, relative to industry news, we look at white papers, association reports, how big's the industry, what's the latest statistics. Sometimes you're going to see 2016 or 2010. Sometimes you get lucky and there's newer data that you can capture, but you want to get that as well as part of the discovery. It may not be ultimately specific to what you do, but the industry insights help shape it. How big of an opportunity is it? Where's the market going? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Is this a growth category or not? So spend your time thinking about that. And then prior art, in the world of technology and process, you have to kind of look at it. Do existing patents exist? And there's certainly Google searches in terms of IP search that you can do. You can look for keywords in terms of intellectual property that may exist or patents that may exist. And that doesn't steer us away from building a company or a product around it. It's just good to know. And we might try to find a different mousetrap or a different way or a different process or a different means of technology to go build what we want to build as part of that. But it's good to know that as part of that discovery. Again, you're going to constantly learn. There's constantly going to be new information. You're going to stumble upon new things, and that's great. Find a centralized place to keep that that's going to continue to shape your ideas. But that's a big, big part of discovery, and you want to be quick about that, what you've compiled, and be able to share that in order to build on top of it. Scouting is big for us. We call it tech scouting, because we're looking at technology-related companies, all various early-stage companies to late-stage companies. You can do Google searches, business-related ideas. You can find websites, look at companies. So just your typical Google search. And then if you're looking at from investable companies, and it's okay that companies have been invested in prior, and it's good to know if there's demand for it. And if there is demand for it, that's actually a good sign versus, hey, I should steer away from this. But TechCrunch, CB Insights, AngelList, PitchBook, Forbes, all of these guys report on new companies that are coming out all the time. And one of my personal favorite tools on the scouting side is once I've done all of those things, I go to LinkedIn and I try to find people I might be connected to that used to work for one of those companies or tied to an investor. So I'll reach out and just say, hey, what can you tell me about this company? What made them so interesting when you were involved or when you invested? Or can you make an introduction to a VC who invested in these guys? And I'm somewhat shameless in that sense, but I love to network. I'm a very curious individual. And I think you have to be in terms of this scouting to find the right solutions and find a way to encompass and consolidate and distill that down into how you're going to shape your idea. What makes them different? Because the last thing you want to do, especially if you're raising capital or thinking about growing this to a point where you might need to bring outside investment or outside partners in, they want to know what those competitors are, who they are, and what makes them different. And then how are you going to build a great company in comparison to that competition? Last is market validation. We're going to dive into this, and this is where Alex is going to take over here in just 1 second. But this is really about talking and engaging with real people, potential customers and users, and what that process looks like. So I love this because this gets us real tactical. Alex is going to do a great job of going through some very clean steps that are going to be very useful for you. And the last thing I want to say about phase one, we look at data. We look at data strategy very significantly. What are we going to capture that's going to differentiate us in the long term that we can apply analytics and new forms of technology to shape our idea even faster? What are we learning and collecting and advising? How can we automate process because we have the right data? We constantly look at that way analytically, data compiling wise, how that generates leads, how that generates business opportunities, how it enhances our distribution. All of those are key. And then we result summary all of this to make a go, no-go decision relative to, hey, we validated or invalidated this thing, and we're going to keep investing our time and energy. But for the most part, this doesn't cost you a lot of money. If you can do most of it yourself, hire some interns, get others to help lean in a little bit with you on this to see if it's a valid idea. It's a worthwhile exercise before you ever build anything, before you ever spend any money. And my last point is the business model canvas, which is a key cornerstone to this validation phase, because it really is what is making this unique, and there's a bunch of different attributes. That is what is next week's presentation. Todd Whittington and Scott Sheaf. Scott was nice enough, he's director of innovation over at Greif here in town and was prior at Battelle, are going to co-present the business model canvas on that front. And I think you're all going to learn a tremendous amount from that information. So with that, I'm going to hand Alex the opportunity to take over the screen And he's going to take us through about the next 20, 30 minutes of slides and help make this validation process really tactical for you.
Hey everybody, before my face gets small again, I'll introduce myself. So my name's Alex Bertel. Together, Matt and I have run pretty much every accelerator in the city of Columbus for the past 10 years. Invested in very early stage companies to later stage fintech companies. But I personally have developed a sweet spot for digital marketing. And really, at H2L, we've carved out our own unique way of validating companies using some of the marketing tactics that we've learned early on with all these startups that we've worked with. So hopefully today this will be very tactical, kind of how-to guide for you guys as you're thinking about launching your next company. So we will share all this content after as the firestorm of content. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. All right, so like as Matt said, we have a very unique process for validating companies. All of this that we're about to go over today can be done in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. And it's all really about defining the problem for your specific target market that you're attempting to launch your new company in. So we have a process that's a rinse and repeat process where we have a problem and an assumption in a specific market. We'll go out and we'll create some hypothesis to test for that problem, develop question sets that are very open-ended, reach out to those early adopters, figure out what they care about, the messaging they look for, how they're viewing the process and around that specific problem. We'll set metrics that those early adopters care about, and then develop a value proposition that our solution fixes that directly aligns with the problem and those metrics that those people that we spoke with have told us about in their own words. Our sweet spot for validating companies is reaching out and talking with about 30 to 50 people. If you can do more, great. 30 is probably the minimum threshold that we set. And if you do it right, you hone in on that problem, those 30 to 50 or 100 or even more, if you do it correctly and you keep your touch points and your contact with them, those are then people you can launch your idea to. And if you do it right, this is an easy way to launch to a soft launch, essentially, to those people that you've spoke with and you build an early relationship with. So again, this is very tactical. I'm going to go through this. And if we tried to distill this down into 4 steps for you guys today, and startups are all broke when we're starting from the beginning, so we're going to try to spend no money to get going. So, step 1, I talked about it before. Interview 30 to 50 people in person. It's kind of tough to do that now during quarantine times, but most people are willing to get on a video chat of some kind, or you can call them up on the phone. There's something about talking with people over the phone versus sending out a survey where somebody's answering a multiple choice question or filling out how much does this problem impact you, rated 0 to 10. Generally, when you speak with somebody and you see their face and you hear their voice, you can get a better sense of if you're actually onto it. And if you do it right, you can really get to that core problem, right? So this is where a lot of people right out of the gates slip up. Usually, we've thought of this idea. We think it's the best thing ever. We're so attached to it. We're passionate about it. We care about it. And because of that, we go in to those people, those 30 to 50 that we're going to target, and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you think this is a good idea? If you describe what you're doing and you straight up ask if this is a good idea, most people will, because they're trying to be nice, especially people in Ohio, they're too nice. They'll say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. You should probably go forward with that. So again, we're trying to test for the problem and really understanding the problem for that person that's on the other end of the phone. So what I'm going to do is ask that same question in a different way to get a long-winded answer from that person that I'm speaking with. you ask them about the process that they're going through. So I have this problem. I think I know what it is. How are you currently dealing with that problem? Can you tell me about the process? Can you tell me about how much it's costing you? How long does it take you to do that? You're going to get, when you ask it this way, you're going to get a long-winded answer that's going to really inform you about if your solution that you have for your new company is worth going forward with. And if you do it right, you're going to get some really good, some insight. So it's something that we all have, and we struggle with this every time when we're building companies, is confirmation bias. So I have my idea, and my company is the best thing ever. I'm really passionate about it. And if I talk with somebody that doesn't really agree with that, or maybe my assumptions are completely off, we get super attached to it. And it's really hard to take a step back and actually look at the data objectively. It's like, okay, this person that I've identified is a decision maker. He or she has the experience that, you know, they would know if this is actually a problem. Maybe what I'm working on might not be spot on, but I'm going to listen to the data objectively and adjust from there. So talking with this person on the other line, you tell them about your solution. This is usually what we would do, right? We would go in and be like, hey, I'm going to build this. Will you buy that? And again, people will be like, yeah, I definitely would probably buy that. But there's really no exchange in value, at least from the get-go. So there's different ways that you can test for actual forms of validation from those 30 to 50 people that you're talking with. The first one is time. You're going to reach out to them in a cold, probably a first introduction. They're going to get to know you. You're going to get to know them. If they give you a sense of, I'm going to actually sit down again with you to learn more, that's definitely a form of validation where you pique their interest enough that they want to sit down and learn more. Second one is the best one, is money. They're actually going to give you some kind of money. They're going to input their credit card into a field. They're going to write you a check. That is the best, hands down, one of the best forms of validation. I mean, that's what we're all going for, right? The third one is reputation. It's like, I am going to take the time out of my day to talk with you. I think you're on to something that fixes a big enough problem. I'm going to introduce you to somebody that might have that problem or can help you on this journey. So those are the three forms of validation that we're trying to get to from all of those 30 to 50 people. So again, this is all about, Matt was talking about it in week one, is it's identifying a problem, an actual problem, and trying to figure out the metric to adjust that current status quo and that change in behavior around that problem. You know, there's this gap in this bridge. It's going to cost me money to fix it. How do I fix it? Don't get too creative around it. It's focus on the problem. So you've talked with 30 to 50 people. It's a lot of work to do that. After you hear the messaging and how people are speaking around the problem, how they're currently going about the process, you're going to do some keyword research online to really figure out and hone in on who those competitors are, if there's some open opportunities. So this is a screenshot from AdWords. So one of the companies I have is a healthcare SaaS company that really helps patients recovering really fix their balance issues. The ultimate thing that we do is we prevent falls, so fall prevention, as you can see here. So AdWords is free until you launch a campaign. It might require you to put a credit card in, log in, use their keyword tool. You'll see exactly what I'm showing you here. So for my healthcare SaaS company that I have, these are potential keywords and currently what those keywords are going for. So this suggested bid price is actually the cost per click. Anytime somebody goes in and looks at fall prevention and my company ranks at the top, this is how Google makes all their money. They're going to charge $2.64 for every single click through. You know, we're broke startups. We probably don't have enough money to start, you know, traumatic brain injury treatments. For $4 a click, we can go broke really fast. But this fall prevention keyword is something we call fathead keyword. So it's a short term that a lot of people are going to capture, as opposed to this balance exercises for seniors, which is a more descriptive term because you have the word for in there. So as you get to know these keywords and this messaging and these problems that your audience is talking about, Google is going to try to pull you in two different directions. And you generally want to go for the intent-driven keyword searches from the get-go. A lot of bigger companies will have the budgets to go after the higher traffic keywords, the more expensive ones that do get a lot of volume, but they can afford the sales funnel. You know, we're broke at the beginning. We're going to target these high intent driven keywords, which is oftentimes a fathead keyword plus many descriptor words. So you've interviewed those 30 to 50. You're going to Google the messaging around the problem. You're going to look at the companies that are on that first page of Google, but scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there's these suggested search results that you really want to target. So fall prevention is expensive. I don't have enough money to go for that, but fall prevention in hospitals is a very direct, intent-driven user that is searching for that, that I can then put my solution in front of and target with more likely to create a conversion event as opposed to somebody that's just visiting to see what's going on. Usually somebody that's searching for balance exercises for senior citizens, balance exercises for elderly. There's some intent around that search traffic that makes it a higher touch point for you and your company. So using another example, when you're buying a house, in this case, Arizona, I'm not searching real estate. I'm searching for a house in a specific city. I'm searching for a new house in a city. I'm searching for a short sale house in a specific city. If I have my solution at the end and it appears, on Google for somebody that is searching for cheap short sale homes for sale in Chandler, Arizona, that is an intent-driven user that I can then create a touch point for that specific user and get to know them and hopefully convert them into, a sale. So when you're looking at the search volume in general, 70% of searches are actually those longer tail keywords. People are searching for the specific thing that they want, right? If I'm searching for shoes, I'm not going to search for just straight up shoes. I'm going to search for Nike running shoes for cross training. I'm going to get very descriptive on my actual search term, as opposed to a larger fathead keyword, which would just be straight up shoes. Bigger companies can buy those all day, but we're startups. We're going to get tactical. We're going to get, gritty, and we're going to try to figure out that long tail keyword that has a higher potential of a conversion. So you've talked with the 30 to 50 people. You've done some keyword research. You think you've really honed in on the problem. The next phase you want to do is to fill your sales funnel. There's a lot of tactics that get into this. So I'm going to try to take it a little bit slower and hover on these. So step one, you've done some research. You've seen the companies that are ranking for your keywords. Next, you want to take those companies that you found that are direct competitors to you and put them into one of these resources. We use SEMrush all the time. It's probably the best all-in-one research tool for looking at anything digital traffic. You take your competitor, you put it in, and Gentronics is a competitor for our SaaS company, our healthcare SaaS company. You can see their search volume, if they're paying for any ads, what ads they're actually buying, what's the copy on those ads, do they have backlinks, do they have PR articles, what's the title of those PR articles. You can see everything that your competitor has done. Neil Patel has a good tool called Ubersuggest. You could put in your competitor, you could put in a keyword, and it'll tell you the keyword confidence rating. So this keyword has a easier target rating than another word that you might have thought you originally would start after. So go in and research your competitors, get familiar with the landscape, take what they've done and try to replicate it yourself. So after you've done some research, you're going to want to test any and all channels for potential user acquisition. This is a big text wall, so I'm going to try to hit most of these. So you've figured out the problem. You've done all of your digital marketing research. Now you're going to want to find those one-to-many channels. One of those ones that we often use is influencers. So there's influencers and bloggers and content creators that are putting out content in your niche target market. You want to try to find those people, get on their email list, create content that they think would be valuable for their users, share it with them. One strategy we like is, those influencers and those bloggers, Usually most of the research, that most people would do, they would Google it, but they would stop at the first page. So after the first page, it's usually where, second and third page are where companies go to die. But those companies on the second and third page, especially in content creators space, still have readers. They still have 1,000+ people on their email list. So figure out a influencer that is actually on the second, third, fifth page of Google search results for that specific keyword and reach out to them. And again, just provide value to their users. Matt mentions LinkedIn. It's a great way to target companies, target people to get in front of. You can just LinkedIn message them. If you have some budget, one platform, these influencer platforms that we used, I was just looking at Tribe again today. Super interesting tool for me to target specific influencers in the industry that I'm going to launch my company in. And then you want to, again, look for these one-to-many channels. Quora is a great place for tons of people just looking to learn, starting conversations. Be an expert in that specific field, and put yourself out there, answer questions in Quora, and share a link to your website that answers those direct questions that people are doing. You can do the same on LinkedIn. There's tons of Slack channels out there that are aligned with, there's Columbus alone has tons of tech Slack channels that you can, target people and users on those channels for interviews. There's associations, conferences. We use Reddit a ton to do a lot of conversation validation. So we'll go in and find a subreddit that's specific to the industry that we're launching in, and we'll ask a question to those specific users. And there's hundreds of thousands of people on Reddit, and sometimes specific subreddits that are right in your target market. It's a very underutilized resource. And ultimately, email is still a great place to find potential users. Get on email lists, create your own email list on your website. There's lots of plugins like SumoMe that you can put on your website that just simply capture emails. Email is a great way to, every time you're making any bit of progress or you have a new promotion or whatever it is, it's always important to build your email list so you can let those people know what you're up to. Some additional paid channels. I mentioned AdWords. You can do a campaign of $1,000 over 2 to 3 weeks to really test and see if those keywords that you thought were good for your business, if they're high converting. See if they can go and fill out a form that you put on your website from specific channels. You can use Facebook Ads Manager to test Instagram ads. You could do Reddit ads. Don't get too crazy with your budget out of the gate, because again, it's about testing and figure out what channel is the best for your company. I've talked a lot about email. One thing that we will do is we'll do cold email outreach. So we'll send oftentimes 100 emails a day at H2L. And this is an actual email script that I used when we were running FinTech 71. I would find the VC firm that I'm looking to target. I tell them in short sentences about what we do. I provide quick links to our site, very quick, very broken up sentences. And I think kind of a quick hack is putting a symbol of some kind in the subject line to really catch their attention. Putting these two brackets in between the words is something different that pops out in inboxes. When you put a bracket in there, it's a symbol that's different than a simple text wall that most people send emails with. So this is an actual real world example. I got probably a 90% open rate and a 65% response rate when I use this formula for FinTech 71. So how do you find the emails? We use a tool called hunter.io. You can input a company URL and it'll guess with a certain accuracy about what the actual email format is. We've been using another one called SalesQL that is a more robust solution. It'll give you the LinkedIn, it'll give you all the social accounts for specific people that you're trying to target with. Either of these tools there is a paid version, but most of them there is a free version as well. You're just capped at the number of queries that you can use. One that I use, because again, we're trying to spend a little money here as possible, you can pay for a robust solution like a HubSpot, or, I guess MailChimp does have some free versions, but we use at least during the research validation phase, we'll use a Gmail mail merge template. So if you look back here, these brackets in this subject line, and then within the content of the email, are actually forms or fields that I use for this email template. So I have the first name, I know what company they work for, I know their email address. All I do is I spend all the time finding those emails, but then I just press a button to send out all the emails. No more copying and pasting. And it's just an easy way to send up to 1,500 emails per week. So you've done all of that work, and it's a lot of work, guys. I'm telling you it is. But if you do it right, you're going to launch your new company to a set of audience that actually cares about what you're doing, where you're actually fixing a problem. So I've talked about my company before. We're a SaaS tool that we're actually developed off of a case study at Ohio State, and we've commercialized that into what it is today. So I'm going to actually make my value proposition now, after all of the research that I've done, whether you're doing a B2B company or you're starting a B2C targeted business. You want to create a value proposition that you can put in front of any of your potential users that'll actually quantify your solution. So we've made this over the years. We've made this simple one sentence value proposition statement. So you're going to have your company name. You're going to do how you're delivering and providing value to that user. You're going to input your niche target market. You're going to put your value proposition and the core problem that you're actually going after, that you've identified from all those conversations and all the research and all of those influencers. And then you're going to input your quantifiable, measurable statistic that affects either the time or the money for that specific problem and the process that that specific user is currently trying to solve. So using my company as an example, Workovo is a SaaS and a hardware tool. We specifically provide that solution for physical and occupational therapists. We affect and reduce the 60-day hospitalization rate for patients that need any form of balance and endurance therapy. Most importantly, we affect that metric by 62.5%. If I put that sentence in front of a decision maker at a skilled nursing facility, a rehab facility, they're going to instantly know the problem, and they're going to know how much my company affects that solution. And you could do that for your company as well. So I think it was a firestorm of content. I'm sure you guys have tons of questions, but I hand it back to Matt real quick.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for moving that over. I will move screens. Remember, you can submit questions anytime. I think where you can kind of see all of this coming together is there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot to know. This video is going to be available that you'll be able to watch again. We're going to try to put some resources out on the website as time goes on. Again, we kind of committed to these 3 sessions. We're on the second one. Next week is the last that we had planned for. So any feedback of additional information that you think would be helpful for you in helping your company, I think we're going to be calling on others to try to participate. There's no pride and ownership in what we're trying to do here with Now Go Start. More so, how can we help some people that really need it right now? We're glad to be a resource to you. So keep going back to the videos or the website to see if there's additional information as we go on. Kind of to encapsulate everything that Alex has gone through in terms of the validation, essentially, there's 3 things that are going to be an outcome. One is you go through this process and you completely invalidate what you thought was right? These are great tactics. You're talking to 30 to 50 people. You're sending out emails. You're having conversations. You're looking at what people are searching for. And you may end up thinking that you had this great idea, but you might be an audience of 1, and your perspective is very different than the masses or your potential customers. So unfortunately, good and bad. One is you didn't spend your lifetime and a bunch of money and your friends and family money to go after this thing without it being validated. Or your great idea is no longer great and you have to abandon it. And that kind of takes me to the next one, which is you learn and you pivot. You might find a great market by what you're doing. You might end up shaping the idea. So it's really good. And especially the way that Alex phrases it in terms of the way that you ask questions and leaving it open-ended and let them talk about how they're solving the problem today. You're going to learn from that. You may pivot to something even better than you've ever thought imaginable because you're listening and you're not pitching what you think is great. You're actually observing and absorbing what they want and what they need to solve a problem that might be a big problem or a little problem. You really got to evaluate that. Or last but not least is your thesis was correct and you've completely validated it and it's time to run forward. You've checked the box, you've stage gated it, you're ready to go move on to the prototype side of things. So that's what leads us to this next slide, which is the next part of our phase. You said, yep, I validated it, or you modified it, and you're ready to move forward with these phases. This can be overwhelming. This can be 4 or 5 sessions alone. A lot of people get hung up on the branding. What's this thing going to be named? I would focus personally on go see if you have a problem we're solving. And if you do, then you can figure out the name. And a lot of that shapes it. The prototype stage is actually building out, and that can be very manual. It doesn't have to be a physical product, but I'll talk about some of the tools that are accessible that you can go out and do that with. There's UX testing, putting that clickable prototype or that solution in front of someone. Again, someone's going out and selling salads to corporates that delivers healthy meals. You don't need to build a bunch of technology. You don't need to click through e-commerce site. Go put a piece of paper in with the 3 or 4 menu items on there and the options, and see if they order and see if they reorder, and then learn how they experience it. See what questions they have so you can modify that e-commerce experience before you ever go off and building it, let alone do the prototype behind it. So you can get very technical, but you also can make it extremely manual and tactical. And then there's the technical feasibility. What am I going to build this on? How is it going to scale? How many users am I going to have? How many concurrent users am I going to have? Again, I'm leading into the technology space right now when I talk about these things. But that's how we think, and this is the domain. But you can look at it contextually inside of the thing that you're trying to build. And that means if you're a technical consultant, it means what's the stack I'm going to be focused on? What value am I going to bring? What do I need to learn in order to be more relevant to the type of buyer I want? And then lastly is the pitch deck. And we think this is a critical next step, because if you can consolidate your story to any audience, and you do want to customize that story, that pitch deck is essential, and I'm going to go through some of that with you right now. And then we'll leave some time for some questions. I saw 1 or 2 pop up, which is great. So from a branding, again, I'm going to keep it high level. We think about it in this way, or the simplest way is, the heart, the brand heart. What is your purpose? What is your mission, vision, values? All of those things that end up shaping what type of company you want to be and what brand you want to exude. The messaging, what's the voice, personality? Are you funny? Are you serious? Are you lighthearted? Are you extremely intense? Are you argumentative? What kind of that personality are you going to do or say inside of your messaging as a brand? And then the value prop itself. And then comes the identity, right? What is that logo, color, typography? What's the font we're going to use? What's that look like? What is the guide that we're going to use for everything that we do, whether it's print or on the web? How are we going to exude our brand across social if we want to engage on those formats? And there's simple tools. You can Google search brand strategy. Again, this is some people get help. There's tons of freelance sites like Fiverr and others that can build your web, a little bit of a content. You can just at least get a brand and a name out there with a nice font. And put a stake in the ground without having to overinvest in that brand strategy. But do know who you are and what you want to exude. And the little sideline over there where it says, my goal to do stuff engineers think is cool. And then as you do the slider bar on either serious or not serious or fun or aggressive, it helps shape some of that brand strategy. The next piece I'll talk about is the prototype. This is the conceptual build. Wireframes are as simple as, you show us, black and white image of a phone, and you say, here's where this is going to go, and this is where this is going to go. And you can be super simple on the wireframe, all the way to a clickable prototype, which looks like a 4D high resolution experience with hotspots that you click on in terms of that app. And there's tools all along there, Sketch, InVision, Marvel, all of those. If you type in prototype app or prototype technology, you'll find a bunch of different solutions. Some of them free, some of them have premium services if you want to get real serious about it. A lot of designers will end up using this if you go to that extent, taking it to the next level when you get into the prototype, or a simple piece of paper where you put your ideas down, helping shape it. And then when it's time to bring in that other partner, that other co-founder, a contractor to go design this thing, you're at least exuding what your vision is inside of that document or inside of those tools to share. And a lot of these have collaborative tools, so you can keep it online and people move it. And they're working at night and we're doing this, moonlighting thing. Next morning you wake up and there's changes and comments and feedback that you can get. And you can also use these tools to get them in front of customers when you're actually doing the UX testing in a virtual setting where we're at right now, where it's a little bit difficult to have the face-to-face correspondence or meetings. So again, I just wanted to talk at very high level about these, but we spend a lot of time figuring this out, making these things come to life so that people say, oh my gosh, I finally get it. How do we make money doing this? What are the unit economics? What is it going to take to build this? And bringing that first phase of what we talked about all the way through to the second phase and helping it come to life. The last thing I'll bring up before we get into Q&A, again, feel free to ask questions that you have, and Tim will help us moderate that, is the pitch deck. I put the URL at the bottom, but if you do Sequoia pitch deck as a Google search, you'll find this. It's a website and it's real simple, in terms of telling your story. But whether it's a VC, an angel investor, whomever it is, these are some of the core questions that are top of mind for them. And first one, and we talked about it in the last session, is your purpose. We use massive transformative purpose to help us guide ourselves through that process to say who we are and what do we want to be and what's that vision, and try to encapsulate it into a very, very compelling story that anybody inside or outside of your organization, your idea, gets where you want to go and motivates them to want to be a part of it, whether they put money in or time or energy in terms of who they are and what they want to do with your company in whatever capacity, silent investor all the way to a participant or contributor. Problem solution, that's where everybody struggles, in my opinion. You'll spend a lot of time that next week in the session around this, so I don't want to dive too deep, but clearly articulating the problem and the solution, the size and the uniqueness of your opportunity does matter when you talk about these things. And these aren't like long-winded answers. You want to hit it right on the head. We've talked to 100 people. We know exactly. We've been in market. I've been doing this for 10 years. Really tell, this is the problem. I see it every single day. This is what people struggle. And to Alex's point, show how you financially model that. What is the problem? How big of a problem is it? If you fixed it with your solution, how much better can the world be when you bring your solution to bear? Team matters very significantly. Again, the jockey and the horse being the idea, the jockey being the entrepreneur. I would say, in my opinion, the jockey matters because the idea will pivot no matter what. Even if you think you have it spot on and your validation, it will continue to evolve as time evolves, as you get customers on your platform. It's super important. And the why now? Why your team? Why right now is this a solution that I should invest in when I'm looking at hundreds of other companies? Why now? That's a key question that you have to be able to answer. Market opportunity, oftentimes we're using terms like TAM, SAM, SOM, total addressable market, serviceable addressable market. How big is this opportunity? And then the financials, and that's one is the unit economics of the business, but also are you making money right now? Have you proven that people will buy this? And so Alex always loves talking. He wants to hear the first thing that comes out of your mouth as an early stage company is, what traction do you have? There's no better traction than financial traction. Are you making money? What are the unit economics? Are people sticking with you? We use attribution. We use retention. We use fall off in terms of where these customers will go when they've been with the solution for a while. So these are all questions people are going to ask to see how valid of an idea, how sticky of a solution, how scalable of a business do you have. And then additionally, competition. I mean, this goes back to the scouting and the discovery that we talked about a little bit earlier. Who are those direct and indirect competitors, and what do you know about them? What makes them unique? And then what do you do to intend to do to win? And how will you thrive as a business, even though there's a competitive landscape out there? And then the last comment I'll make is around vision. And this is really, 5 years from now, where do you want to be? And I think depending on who people are talking to, there's a lot of people that jump immediate to like, well, we're going to have an exit and we're going to have liquidity and somebody's going to buy us or we're going to IPO. And that's not what these investors are asking for. And it's not the story that other people want to hear. It's where do you think this company is going to be in 5 years? What kind of market are you servicing? Enterprises? Are you servicing 60% of the small businesses that are out there? Are you driving 10% of all products and sales for your particular niche through your channel and your model? That's the vision that we want to hear when we hear new ideas. So with that, I'll just summarize, our process is one thing. You've got to have your own process. Hopefully some of these elements are applicable to you, but you can constantly iterate. There's so many tools and free tools that are out there, whether you're looking on YouTube or Vimeo or other assets that are out there. There's so much great content to learn from. And I think the most curious entrepreneurs are the best entrepreneurs, where they constantly want to improve and learn. So refine your own process. This is what works for us as a venture studio building technology companies. If you're a consulting firm, if you're hospitality, if you're in healthcare, providing services, our process may not apply, but hopefully some of these things are quite helpful for you. Again, validate before you spend a bunch of money, and there's some really inexpensive, if not cheap, do-it-yourself approaches to this. So we encourage you to utilize those tools, and don't over-engineer your product or your solution until you feel like you have strong product market fit. Are people really buying it? Are they sticking with it? Do you have the right MVP or that minimal viable product? And constantly iterate on your pitch deck. There's going to be different audiences and they have different expectations. A VC is looking for a market maker. Tier 1 VCs are looking for market making opportunities. Angel investors may have a very different opinion versus family and friends who might help you seed this company. And you've got to be able to adapt your story. They don't want to hear all about the product. They want to hear about the business. And a lot of entrepreneurs can get very wrapped up in the idea and not the business. So we encourage you to kind of really spend some time and energy refining your pitch deck and knowing who your audience is and what they need to hear in order to buy in. With that, thank you for your time. I'm going to hand it over to Tim to help us moderate the final steps into today's session.
Great job, guys. Just a couple of questions. Alex, this one's probably best for you. Should the 30 to 50 people that you're talking to as part of your validation, should they be in your target market? The example they gave, if you want to sell Christmas trees, should I only target people who celebrate Christmas?
I would say yes, they need to be in your initial target market. And I think I would add that they need to be strangers too. So there's something about talking with friends and family. Because of your relationship with them, your data will be a little bit skewed. And it's going to be harder to get in front of strangers, but yes, you need to be target specifically people in your target market.
Very cool.
I'll just add a comment to that, and it's specific to the Christmas trees thing. What are you going to do the rest of the year? What type of product are you selling? What type of services? How big of an opportunity can it be? So I would think about it. Am I a Christmas tree reseller? Am I a holiday retailer? Am I a special occasions retailer? And how can your business evolve rather than pigeonholing yourself into only Christmas trees, for instance? So think broader. Think about how you can continue to elevate that relationship with a customer and continue to sell products and services to them well beyond a single instance. Maybe you'll get the repeat, maybe you won't. Maybe it was just convenient when they drove by when you're selling your Christmas tree versus they moved or whatever. If you can build a relationship with someone and continue to sell products and services, that's a much more scalable business. So just using the Christmas tree analogy to apply that to a larger scheme and how you think about your business and scale.
A lot of money in wholesale Christmas trees.
Oh, yeah.
A larger question here. And I know that there are examples that you guys will bring up. My team is building towards a minimum viable product. In the meantime, we're directing our resources to provide services in a different market in order to obtain a product. Is that a bad strategy for my company description to have two different focus points?
We're in a lot of different things. So I'm the poorest example. Listen to me, don't follow me. I would say, I think it's okay. I mean, we're all in survival mode at this point. And I think people who bootstrap their business and build companies, you might find out that other business is actually more viable than the one that you want to build. We generate revenue. We do consulting with big corporations. We do our own ideas. We put money into entrepreneurs. So, what I call lumpy portions of our business with over a year's time, the consulting and the engagements, the showcases, the accelerators that we run help level out our income while we do other interesting things. There's certainly people that say, focus on one thing, do it right, be amazing at it. And I think there's a lot of validity to that. I think we're just in a different time right now. So I never ding someone when they're doing nights and weekends, doing something else to survive, keep people employed while they're working on their passion project at the same time. Everybody on this call, the entire Horizon 2 team has various things that we do that we're passionate about, as well as collaborate on one or two big ideas that we're trying to build out at the same time. I think personally, there's a ton of depression that comes along with being an entrepreneur and finding yourself spread too thin, not enjoying life. Those can be really rough moments where I think it takes a personal toll on you to be working on those two projects sometimes, and you've got to decide whether that's worth it or not. But financially, I'd never ding someone from just trying to survive, especially if they're bootstrapping something. I don't know if Alex, you have additional comments there.
Yeah, we can't knock anybody for, focusing on something that generates revenue while you're simultaneously building the big picture project. I think especially now, if you have an idea that's generating cash, the only thing, in these examples is you're just going to lose focus. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to focus on, maybe, your moonshot potential. You're just not going to get there as fast as if you're, focusing on something else that's generating cash. And we can't knock you right now. We all do the same thing. I'd say the only issue is I don't think it's going to hurt you at all. Your time and your path to get to that big opportunity is just going to be slower.
Yeah. And if you take outside money, everything changes at that point. They want you focused on that one idea. If you're bootstrapping it, it's your company, you own 100% of it, or it's shared amongst the partners and you all agree these two things are the right thing to do, who's to blame you?
And some of those points that Matt hit on specifically are covered in the previous webinar that we did last week. You can go to nowgostart.com under past sessions, the successes and failure. Wanted to be respectful of everybody's time, wanted to let the attendees know that we'll be sending a follow-up survey to just see, is this information presented in the way that's digestible for you? And also what else you'd like to see covered as we try to make a determination about if other sessions would be valuable. So yeah, thank you guys. Great job.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.